Good. Good to see you. Good to see some faces. Good to see Neil, actually. Neil, now it's so much easier when I look at your first name, Neil, and then however you say your first name, it's
Prate.
oh,
Hello.
hello, Neil. Hey, Neil. Hey, is this your first time on this particular call? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's my first time.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Neil, that it's nice to have you on the call. It's funny because I feel like we've been interacting so much. It feels like you've already been on a few calls. Um, uh, you're currently
Yeah,
you got
wait. I will try to attend more.
sure. No, you've got exams going on right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I got two exams tomorrow, and yeah, I could manage them.
All right, fair enough. Well, Neil, if you don't mind, do you want to introduce yourself to the group just so they can get to know you a bit?
Okay, so hello everyone. First of all, I'm a electronics and communication sophomore from India, Kolkata, and I am happy to be here. That's it.
Nice, good deal. Cool. Okay. Well, then, hey, for everyone else, for Ruth and for Michael and Vineeth and Manish, uh, Pratya also goes by Neil on in Slack, which I've given him a really hard time about, and like for the life of me, I'm not sure why I gave him a hard time. It's um, I guess that's just what I do. Cool. Okay. All right. Great. Let's get rolling. And we've got, I think, a number of things to chat about. I turned on the recording, so we'll post our meeting like we always do. We've got a link to the meeting minutes, and I'll share that in the chat. Meeting minute. I'm saying some things that some of you have heard before, but just meeting minutes uh, are a community thing. So take notes as we go. And pop topics in there as we go as well. One topic that isn't listed just yet, and let me throw it in. And that is hopefully a demo of a Meshery adapter, the Meshery Kuma adapter. Nikhil, do you mind pinging Abhishek to see if he's going to join to present that?
Yeah, sure. I will do it
Okay.
in a minute.
Thank you. I'll share the meeting minutes. Great. Okay. Kuma adapter. Maybe sort of an adapter conversation in general, specifically maybe some console stuff. Good. If you're on the call and your name isn't here, please drop it in. Also, just a quick disclaimer on my part. If I'm chatting with any one of you, or you're seeing me type messages, notes, and there happens to be a double L, that's my keyboard's fault, not my fault. Okay, I want to go on record that like I've been misspelling a lot of things with L in it recently, and the keyboard, like half the time I press the L button, as of yesterday, I'm getting a double L. So I want to go on record. I want to be clear. Actually, see, this is an example of like holiday. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Now that everyone knows that it's not me that's misspelling, it's my keyboard. But can we talk about this first item here, SMI conformance? Actually, I don't think Abhishek is on just yet. It'll be a more productive conversation when he is. So let's hold on that one. Ruth, check that out. I spelled the last name from memory, so that I think I get points for that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 points on that.
Good. Unfortunately, the same thing for the Kuma adapter demo. We'll hold.
Yeah. Abhishek would be able to join me.
Cool. Okay, we'll hold for Abhishek. As a matter of fact, like this conversation is probably good to have Abhishek on as well, in part because he's been focusing on adapters. And so as Mikhail goes to potentially make waves on the console adapter, it'll be good to have Abhishek here to walk through. So wow, we've got the entire agenda backwards. All right, so Nikhil, you have an open PR. Do you want to introduce this to people while I compile it real quick?
Yes, sure. Actually, just so currently, actually, I don't have my Meshery running, so I will just give it a walkthrough by explaining the problem with it. So whenever we run a performance test in Meshery, we get the results in the results menu, sub-menu in the nav bar on the left hand side. So the results get populated as a list in the table. So generally, whenever we are doing any performance test based on the any of the service meshes, the issue is that if we are using a Kubernetes config or anything, then the results are showing appropriately as it needs to. But when we are using a service mesh to check the performance test and show the results, but the model which shows the performance of the mesh doesn't get populated with the data. So I guess there is some issue with the code. So as I didn't have the configuration to check it out, but since it was working for Kubernetes and the general performance test for any of the site, it was a specific issue with the service mesh itself, with any of the service mesh.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, let me. Yeah. So the PR that Nikhil is talking about is linked in our meeting minutes, and it's to fix an issue that I've seen a few times, and I'm not entirely sure if it's my system. I don't think it's necessarily my system. The verbal description that Nikhil just gave, you can kind of see it in action in this recording. That's that as a user, you go in to look at performance results, and part of what you can do in Meshery is you can see a histogram of the performance metrics or the statistical analysis of the results. Then you can also see that horizontal ellipsis, those horizontal 3 dots. You can click on any of the rows to get a little bit of a tabular view of the same data. It's both a tabular view of that same data, and it's also some data that isn't graphed. And yeah, and so what's being shown here is that, like, on occasion, I'll go into look at that data and it won't display. And for my thinking, yeah, and there's a couple of different scenarios in which this potentially occurs. So part of the data that is retrieved during a performance test are metrics about the Kubernetes cluster, the number of nodes, how many resources they have, that kind of a thing. And some of the other potential data is, I think, dependent upon, it shouldn't be dependent upon whether or not you have Grafana or Prometheus connected. But I wonder if that doesn't play a factor in how this bug manifests. So So Nikhil, your PR is here. In what you addressed in the code change that you've done, is that or what can you describe the fixes that you did?
Yeah. So basically, on my local, I tried to do a performance test when I have a Kubernetes cluster running, and I have uploaded the config file in the Meshery. So the Kubernetes metrics were available in the performance test, the model that we see on the results page. But as I don't have any configuration for any particular service mesh like HTO or something else, so my worst means the guess is that it's because of the control in the code that we have for the service mesh section. We have three sections for the in general results model will have three part: one for the Kubernetes, one for the service mesh, and one for the general performance test which we run. So the service mesh part of the table is facing some issue. There is some code issue with that part of the code. So and that was with the this is a thing that when we pass a member of the object, like a data member of the object, so when in React we can't render the object directly, we will have to pass it the basic data types that are available, that is the number, string, and other. So instead of passing the data members, the object itself was passed to the function. So that's the result. I converted passed use the object.entries function, inbuilt function, that's the inbuilt function, to convert the objects to a pair of array with two keys and object values, in which we'll read the values and pass it to the function instead of passing the object by dereferencing it in the function, so that there is no issue with the data type of the value which is being passed.
And then as I was verifying the fix, I seem to still experience the behavior. So I've just checked out this branch, this PR, and I'm compiling, and was going to take a look. It's one of those things that I think we have to talk through because I still see the issue manifest even with this change, and which, yeah. So yeah,
the issue what I think the issue is with this function is particularly because it calls another function but inside that part, render mesh info, and that the same function is being called by other functions also. But if we are, when it is called by other functions, it runs appropriately, means as we wanted to. But when it's called from this function, then it shows an error.
Okay. All right. So then in my environment, I'm just running Docker desktop with Kubernetes. I'm able to connect to Kubernetes. We've got, I'm not running any adapters because I've just built locally and I've only built Meshery server. I haven't built the adapters, and so they're not in the environment. But if I go over to some results, and in the recording, there's a quick WRK2 test that was a quick WRK2 test again that I was kind of using as the issues. So if I come here, we search for WRK2. All right, so I think these are the two right here. So a WRK2 test and a WRK2 test again. Okay, so in this environment, if yeah, I don't know. I don't recall quite what was in the environment at the time, and that's funny because that's actually the point of this additional data. Is what you're seeing right here is like this is some additional info about the performance analysis, which can be helpful to have in a tabular format. That's great. What we're not seeing, and this isn't a bug. This isn't the bug that we're looking at. But what we're not seeing right now is some additional data about Kubernetes and the nodes. And that's because that data wasn't collected at the time. and this is why I'm saying, like, I think that in order to collect that data, we might have had, I probably would have had to have had Prometheus connected, and I might not have connected it. So that's why I'm saying, like, well, sometimes the bug might manifest differently in different situations. So here's a test that I ran, this was a couple months ago or something, shortly thereafter. And so this one, though, does come back with, or I still see the issue, even though, Nikhil, you were saying, we've switched over. And so, Nikhil, tell me what you need to see, I guess.
If you can do a performance test right now, means as you have a Kubernetes cluster set up. So I just want to confirm if that part is running.
So in this case, we're making something up. So I do have, so I am connected to Kubernetes. I am not connected to Prometheus. So the results ran, they're here. You can download those. See, we're able to download some of the data, not all of it, here. And then we're able to go back to results. We've got our tests. We've got our, click here. This shows. Now, I think, okay, that's good. While the other test that we looked at was performed using WRK2, I don't think that has anything to do with this bug manifesting. So Nikhil, do you need the bug reproduced, or do you want to look at what was happening here?
Actually, I will look into it again because I don't think I will try it with WRK2, but I guess it is not specific to WRK2 as far as
Right. No, yeah, I don't think that it is. Actually, so to tie this off, it's likely the case that it does have more to do with trying to collect node statistics from Kubernetes, from Prometheus. And so
actually, the node statistics from Kubernetes were available in my test. If I have Meshery running, so I will show it just a second.
Sure. Right, and that's actually kind of part of the issue is that, like, I will occasionally see node statistics as well.
Shall I share my screen?
Sure. Yeah.
So I ran a performance test, and for that, before making the changes, before I did any changes, I can see the Kubernetes data available from mesh itself, but there wasn't anything metrics for the service mesh. So that's why what I thought was it was only for the service mesh itself.
In your environment,
Metrics.
are you connected to Kubernetes? Or, I'm sorry, to Prometheus?
No, I haven't. I just uploaded a config file and tried it. Right now, I don't have Kubernetes running.
Okay.
I won't be able to do it again, but we wish it to work for me. I will give it another try. And I guess I will have to try with Prometheus. But as I can see, the conversation between you and Ayush. I guess Ayush was working on it previously.
Right.
He tried with Kubernetes, with Prometheus, and it was working for it. I don't know. Means if anyone else also has Prometheus setup or Grafana setup in the system, if they can try out this PR and confirm if they are also facing the same issue as we.
Yeah, I guess actually, Mikhail, have you run a couple of performance tests just yet? I'm curious if you have Meshery running, are you able to retrieve performance test results, including those from that ellipsis?
No, I did run a couple of tests, but I'm not having I don't have a Meshery environment now, and I can't remember which PC I had it on as well. I can check when I have time. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep, sure. No. Yeah, it's been this long-standing deal where I experienced this issue, and I don't know that many others do. Yeah. Next time that you run up. Yeah.
Will do.
Nice. All right. Okay, good. So Nikhil, we'll follow up, I guess. All right.
Yeah. We follow up in the Slack, I guess.
So other items on the agenda. It looks like Abhishek hasn't joined just yet, so we may not be able to.
Yeah, I guess I said he won't be joining.
Oh, he won't be. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
He will convey it next week.
Okay. On that, Mikhail, would it be helpful to spend a little bit of this time to kind of poke and prod over the console adapter?
Yeah, we can do that. Maybe just 2 sentences background. So I thought that was a good place to start, because right now I'm actively working with console, exploring it in a POC, and so when I tried to use Meshery to look at console, I noticed that the version was outdated and there is an issue for that. So I thought I could start with that one. And then I saw other issues like that it should be able to improve support for running on one node, which is typical if you run it locally. And then I saw a refactoring issue, that be using Helm to generate the config that is deployed, which of course is also a very good idea. And then it became a tiny bit too big as a first step into this. But then I thought, then you gave me this task that I can do about what's release drafter, I think it's called, and I can do that. And then I thought I could update the console manifest anyway using Helm. Just do it manually, and then this is updated. And then actually I had sort of like wondered what sort of the original parameterization is. I can figure it out from going back if that's at all worth doing. And then I wondered, do we have some guidelines how the default configuration of the service meshes that are included in the adapters should be? Should it be like production ready with all the security on? Should it be close to the default, usually sort of like tutorial-like configuration given by the vendor, so that it's sort of like easy to get started with it? Should it, for instance, be per default that you can actually explore it locally, so that it's for one node? And yes, so I asked that in the issue, and I think that would be, maybe it's documented somewhere, but I sort of like couldn't find it. And also think, from a point of view of comparing stuff, whether you have TLS on or not and stuff like this, it probably will make a difference. Or it would be important to, that the configuration is as similar as possible across all the meshes, if that's possible at all. But, back to the console, should I just sort of like, not really worry about the original configuration, but just create a one node so that it works locally, and sort of tutorial that you can start exploring and playing locally without having to worry too much.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, then I do that. But do you think we should have some sort of guidelines that we actually say yes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great highlight. Like in general, Meshery's abilities there are woefully underpowered. The initial, like we kind of accomplished the initial goal of, or some time ago, we accomplished the initial goal of doing what you're saying around providing a little bit of a playground, if you will. Like, hey, here's a relatively simple install that works that you can go through and configure to. You can deploy some sample apps, play with those, take those same sample apps, deploy them on a different mesh, play with that mesh, sort of evaluate. You can kind of evaluate performance to the extent that you're comparing apples to apples, almost. But the lack of controls, but that's so not that we should discuss much about the refactoring of the adapters, but part of thinking about taking on empowering the user with a bit of choice, hey, the deployment model, or even before that, is really like, hey, did you want to deploy the latest version of console or 1.7 or 1.6? As we look at that, we quickly move into the other conversation about a refactoring, because it's like, hey, look, that's really agnostic to any tech that any given mesh has. It's just identify a version number, and so. But yeah, to get to right side the adapter, so to speak, because it's kind of belly up, if you will, which I think I was mentioning. There's a few HashiCorp folks that are involved. They're a partner of Layer 5. I'm here in the Slack. They're very much so engaged. They've been, I can't tell you how many meetings that we've had where they're like, hey, so when's that adapter going to go from code that's like almost 2 years old now? Like 1.5 was quite some long. And so I mean, so they're stoked at the notion that someone is sniffing around the adapter. Sorry. So kind of long story. I think you hit it totally on the head. That there is an adapter doc that
I read that.
Looked at, but it's got,
I looked at that.
But it's got nothing to do with like the actual things that you need here and now, which is, as what's the current structure of the code as a developer? How do I, what am I? So we need some of that. We're right in the crosshairs of like, should we be focusing on articulating that very well in context of kind of a refactoring? I don't know. We're like right on the cusp of it. In the Istio, so here's something else to reflect on, like as you get familiar with adapters, Mikhail, and that's that couple of philosophies, and I think this will help as you digest and as you go to give direction as well. Like as you go to, the more comfortable you get, the more that. So we have, as an industry, we have service mesh interface, or SMI. And it's more or less you're trying to achieve uniformity sort of across each of the meshes. And in doing so, the nature of doing that means that it focuses on lowest common denominator capability. Generally, it's a natural thing. And that goal very well aligned with the goal of providing interoperability with a bunch of meshes, very well aligned with Meshery. The approach, or I would say Meshery's goal is to, in a first-class way, ensure that each of the meshes are able to expose their proprietary value. Proprietary is maybe the wrong, but their special sauce value over and above what's, the watermark, if you will, of common functionality. Hence why we don't have one adapter. We have an adapter for each one. Now, that said, that doesn't mean that Meshery shouldn't be either taking advantage of SMI. Well, I mean, it does. I mean, but taking more advantage of SMI literally for some of the below the watermark things. So yeah, anyway, design, just sort of talking aloud about a design principle of, so the Istio adapter is the most powerful adapter Meshery has.
Yeah.
Two reasons. One, it was the first one, and so it's been around the longest. Two, Istio is the most, the more powerful mesh, or at least originally anyway. And we've, one of the questions, and Mikhail, as you go and get familiar with this, like a good way, like a way of making a mark on Meshery as a project is to think about, consider this next question. Let me share this small visual. Of the adapters that we have, Kaleche and some others have been making sure that the docs for these are improving. And so I'm just bringing up this, just the one. Yeah, this is probably fine. But the point here is some adapters are categorized as being of an alpha status, a beta status, or a stable status. And early on in the project, for lack of having any, much engineering rigor around this, that's a simple way to just sort of quickly categorize them and set a general expectation about what you would expect, a user would expect. But Mikhail, those are soft lines between stable, beta, and alpha, and are potential things that is something that you might actually want to characterize or think about characterizing as your. So I brought up the console repo briefly, and it is, fairly tight or fairly small, I guess we would say. There's some things, Mikhail, that maybe have become really obvious to you as you've gone to kind of poke at the adapter, but just in case they're not, I think it will be helpful for me to say these next couple of things, and that is, so you're familiar with the this high level architecture. You've got a great understanding of that. One of the concepts, one of the things that there's two things about adapters that we generally try to do. So one is treat them as a stateless thing. And I think there's a couple of statements to be made around the notion that it's stateless, and that is that if there's a console adapter, that console adapter is it is generally not in motion. It's generally like not doing anything unless Meshery itself tells it to do something, or unless it is evented to, like usually from Kubernetes. At some point, we'll have a new component. There's another component being worked on in Meshery called, it's called the Meshery operator. And
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And it'll be hopefully, introspecting the Kubernetes environment, identifying, discovering service meshes and their config. And as it itemizes and sort of indexes, what's going on inside of a Kubernetes environment, it will be eventing, it will be sending over that data. Ideally, it will be sending that information back to the type of adapter. So if MeshSync discovers that there's a console in the environment, it'll be gathering up info, ideally sending it back through the console adapter, because the adapters, to the extent that we can, we try to make sure that they have only mesh specific info or mesh specific capabilities. Like anything that's a general capability, we would want to have probably an in-Meshery server, because that's just, we don't want to repeat ourselves across. But the unique considerations of a given mesh, ideally that's what goes into the adapters. The adapters are stateless, such that you could take one adapter and have it interface with any number of instances of a console deployment. So if you have 10 console deployments, that's fine. You don't need 10 adapters. You can deploy 10 adapters. That's fine. You can deploy quite a few. I'm sorry. Under this guide section, there's this multiple adapters. There's a couple of scenarios that has my ugly mug at the bottom of it, apparently. But it talks a little bit about the fact that, So yeah, I don't know how. Okay, so then here's one other thing about them. It kind of part of their philosophy, or part of how they work, is that, again, they don't really do anything until they're acted upon. One of the ways, and they are acted upon every single time that. Right now, I believe this is a true statement. Like every single time, certainly every time that you go to like the /management endpoint, or that you were to, as a user, were to navigate to any one of these, Meshery server will quickly send a gRPC message over to the adapter. It'll invoke like a get mesh name, I think is what it's called. It'll basically go over and do a quick a quick check to make sure it can talk to the adapter, and then tell the adapter to return back its list of supported operations. So if we did, and Michaela, if I'm telling, if you're already familiar with all this, like you can usher me along.
No, it's great. I've seen some of this, but it's great to get this summary and explanations and context, and it's very good.
So, by the way, this snags, I've gotten snagged on this any number of times, and so has any other, most of the contributors, and that's about the virtual networking, and how, I locally, I know it's a tiny font. I'm sorry, I can't. Why can't I make the it's bigger anyway? I just FYI, so I'm on a Mac. It's got a Wi-Fi NIC. I'm on wireless. We're running Docker desktop. It's running Kubernetes, so it's got its own virtual networks over there. Docker itself is, Meshery itself is running outside of the cluster right now. We support deploying inside or outside, but outside right now, it and I think we have some diagrams about what I'm about to say in the documentation, but it's just the Docker networking that goes on when we're running Meshery. Meshery itself, Meshery server, is running in its own Docker network on a private IP address range, which means that when I've just built the console adapter, and I built it running on my local Mac, so that port that's listening is on my local Mac's IP address. which means that if I go into now that I'm running console, well, hey, I should probably connect Meshery to it. Fine, okay, it's not connected, so I'll go over and connect it. Most likely, this won't. Well, actually, maybe this will work. Okay, so the reason that that's fine. The reason that this worked is because if this didn't work, here, let me yeah, get myself all confused. This worked because I went into my resolve.conf, my local DNS config, and added Meshery local.layer5.io to map to localhost. If I go look at my resolve.conf here, okay. No, I didn't. Hold on. Did we? Okay. All right. This is a good. Oh, Meshery Meshery server as an application. It'll, as a Docker application, it'll mount your user's home directory, specifically a hidden folder called Meshery. Oops. Within there, there's a small database to persist a few things, but there's also a Docker compose file, which is called meshery.yaml. When we look at meshery.yaml, part of what when this compose application runs, it sets a couple of environment variables, and it sets these adapter URLs.
I'm not sure whether I don't see anything. Maybe you're not.
Wow. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, on another screen.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I was sharing my whole. Yeah. Whoops. So, actually, Abhishek, am I leading? So.
Yeah.
I'm in some respects leading. Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? I did get us off on the wrong foot on this conversation because I forgot that I built Meshery server locally on my machine. And I also built the Octarine adapter locally on my machine. So this whole spiel I was going through about bridge networks and having to make sure that I was providing the right connectivity and providing the right address to get to this gRPC port didn't really matter because I built Meshery locally on my local host using the host networking, and the same thing for this adapter. So they're able to speak to each other just fine. But I was just going to highlight that just in case you were running Meshery server in Docker and then building the console adapter separately, they would be on two different networks. There's a small gotcha to watch out for.
Yeah, that's good to know.
All right, so actually, I am connected to our adapter now, and now I can demonstrate the fact that well, here, I guess I can't really do it quickly, but basically every time that this page loads, actually, you can see I'm clicking refresh, and you can see for a split second or longer than you should see that what is initially being shown is it says, hey, configure settings, which is the Meshery server code saying, well, I don't know what to show you because I haven't queried the console adapter yet. And every time that I refresh, let's see if this is the case. So if I refresh this page. Couple of interesting things going on. One, it basically what it does what I was saying, which is basically goes over, retrieves a list. It retrieves the name of the adapter. It retrieves a list of supported operations. Those operations, in this case, they fall into 3 categories. But, which is like, installing it, deleting it, installing a couple of different sample apps. And so we will see in the adapter those, like, it's kind of I guess what we're trying to get to is like, hey, like, the adapters are going to have they're each going to have their own capabilities. Meshery server is ignorant of what those are, and so it'll just ask sort of real time, hey, you tell me what you're capable of, and I'll just display that. I'll format that in a pretty way, well, in a semi pretty way, to the user, and then I'll let them invoke whatever operations you're telling me you're capable of. So, yeah. That was most of my point. I think the second part of this that's interesting is like, well, okay, hey, also, I am connected. Meshery server is connected to a Kubernetes environment, and you can see it's it's retrieving a bit of info, environment info. And Nikhil, the bug that you were working on, it's this kind of environment info that that we're expecting to see here, like over here, we would normally see that type of data, 3 nodes or 3 CPUs. So Mikhail, just sort of some design philosophy, kind of some the fact that they're intentionally a bit decoupled. There's a bit of dynamicism in terms of so one interesting thing, I think I was talking to Abhishek about this a little bit ago, and that was that, like, not that this is a big deal, but just to reinforce the notion that Meshery is calling to the adapters every time that we load a page like this, is in the UI, as a user, you can go over to a specific service mesh. And it'll show you, hey, you're on that mesh. Okay, great. Or you could go to like the group, the just this top level group, and if you click here, it says, well, it'll list out all the adapters you're connected to, and you can kind of choose them from this list. Since I'm only connected to one, anyway, if I had multiple, if you sit here and refresh, because these are like Go routines or channels that are happening when Meshery server would reach out to each of the individual adapters, it's not guaranteeing the order of messaging. And so you would actually see the order of these adapters change inside of the list, because they would have responded back to Meshery server at various times. Okay, so I don't know. All right, so.
So Lee, I have a suggestion here.
Yeah.
I'm more of wondering. So if we are planning on making the Meshery backend server to be a stateless application, then there is a little bit of trade-off here as of maintaining states, wherein you'll have to query every time you refresh. That's what I mean. And if not, in the other case, we can have a local caching or some kind of statefulness for Meshery backend to maintain this or to sort of avoid this issue.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. Let me pull this back up, which is to say that, Abhishek, you're right that there's a bit of state caching that goes on in Meshery server, and that's actually cached in a hidden folder under the user's home directory. That function that does persist and kind of cache some things today. One of the things that it doesn't cache is the connection, the supported operations that are provided by each adapter.
Right.
There could be some optimization that we might want to do there. but yeah, yep. There's, in general, actually, there's a lot of there's a lot of things to do. So Mikhail, I wanted to make sure that I'm excited that you're here. First of all, I'm excited that you're interested in the console adapter. It's been, I'm sure, tiresome for HashiCorp because they have potential customers taking Meshery and trying to evaluate should they run console, and they're getting a bad console experience or an old console experience. And so they're excited to see it potentially bump up in version number. It is, yeah, I think, but what you said. So yeah, it really doesn't matter what the, okay, I'll say it like this. When we were writing out the Istio adapter, Istio, sort of prominently would display here, if you want to install Istio, and you're familiar with this, Mikhail, but if you want to display, if you want to run Istio in a demo deployment, here's a set of configs. If you want to run it in a minimal deployment, here's a set of configs. You want to run it securely, like, in general, we want to, in a highly customizable way, support letting users turn on or off MTLS, or turn on distributed trace sampling, and specify how often they want to do. Like, there are an ad nauseum number of variable configuration items to do there. The project itself hasn't bitten off attempting to do that, and as a project, I would say we're not in a position, we don't have enough people here to do that well. And so we've been focusing on this bit about provisioning a mesh to be, really, for direct. I would say, I would say something to the effect of, who gives a rip? Like there's no specialness about that. Like, I don't need to use Meshery to do that necessarily. So why am I going to use the tool? Well, you're going to use the tool, and we built it initially after some first use cases, but we very quickly want to get into it. Was like, people ask this question, which one should I use? Well, hey, this is a quick tool to provision that supports more than any other tool does, so you can quickly get familiarity. Here's some demo and some sample apps to do that. Some reasons why you're going to come back to the tool is for performance management is one. That's a very helpful thing, that not only is an initial adoption question, but ongoing is like, you need to manage that performance, make sure. And then the further we get along, it'll, anyway, what I was trying to get to is, we haven't invested a ton of time into the lifecycle management, the provisioning and deprovisioning of the meshes, because it is such a commodity. It's a thing that we have to do to be able to deliver on that higher level value that we're looking, trying to help people with. But we've not done it well just yet. And even as you go to, I think as you uplift the console adapter in its current form factor, if you will, and you achieve that mission, it'll be a great, we will trumpet that, although I think even you will turn around and say, well, that was helpful, that's good, and yet it's still woefully underpowered in terms of like the amount of configuration, the amount of options that are exposed. Like it's after you turn around and look at that completed work, and we were to discuss kind of what a refactoring of the adapters look like, then we might be really providing some fairly interesting things. I mean, there's a number of ways in which each of the service meshes themselves, they've agreed to use Meshery in their pipelines. If the Meshery adapters facilitate deploying any number of different versions of each mesh, that becomes pretty powerful for a lot of for use cases, not only for the service meshes themselves to do regression testing and other things on themselves, but also very much so for any users, service mesh operators, to perform some of those same things because they're going to have their own configs in their own environments. So.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay.
It was.
Okay.
It's good.
Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. Good. Good. You're not just being kind. Okay.
No. Also, but
okay. Well, shoot. I can talk about a Meshery adapter for an hour. Abhishek, you don't happen to have the Kuma adapter running anywhere, do you? I was hoping we might be able to demo that.
It lacks a lot of functionalities at the moment, and we need to sort of do some rework around it.
Okay, so to be able to show like provisioning of Kuma, we can't do that today.
Yeah, not today. I guess we can push it to the next.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, so now that I talked for the whole time, we've got a couple of minutes. Does anyone else have things that they wanted to talk about?
So I just want to update on the Kuma adapter, the Awesome adapter. Like how I checked out the repository, there wasn't any commits or any changes at the moment, and I just wanted to know what exactly is the update on it, or is anyone working and the changes are in local, or yeah. So I
No.
just wanted.
I can confidently answer no. Or if they are, it's not about the adapter code. It would just be about like documentation or something else. And no, nobody's. We do need to have another call with Microsoft and determine whether or not they're going to jump in and try to write some of this themselves.
Got it. All right.
But assuming that they're not, or I think maybe that's the better assumption to make, that they wouldn't be. Yeah, I think the goal that we're trying to, so Microsoft wants to announce that Open Service Mesh is officially and in a blessed and sanctified way, SMI conformant, because they say it is today. But what does it mean to be SMI conformant? And who can verify? OSM implements SMI, or so they say. And no doubt it does. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But my point is they want to go make that official as quick as they can. And so that's why they're excited about Meshery and the SMI conformance tool. And so to help them achieve that, there's just two things that the OSM adapter has to do. One is to provision OSM. The other one is to support the SMI conformance operation.
Got it. Okay, understood.
Other topics.
Hi.
Hey, Ruth.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out that I still have issues with running GKL on my system. So for the meantime, I wouldn't be attending to any GKL based issue. So the current issue with the copy to clipboard, I don't know if someone can take it up. Yeah. So I don't stay so long on it.
Sure, right. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I wonder if
Okay.
is that just a you're kind of still stuck somewhere between Ruby and Windows?
Yes, I think it's the problem with my Windows version or something. So I have to like fix that before I can continue any GKL based issue.
Sure. Yeah.
Then also Peace has not been on the call for a while, so I don't know if we reach out to her. She hasn't been attending the call for a while.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, we should. We absolutely should.
Okay.
Um,
So that's just what I see.
nice. Okay. Well, Ruth, if we're able to catch up tomorrow, maybe part of that catching up, we can do some diagnosis of Jekyll, see if we can overcome it.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
That's fine.
Nice. Anything else?
I had just one thing to discuss. Yeah, Sam, you can go if you are something. I will see it on.
Thanks, Nikhil. Lay, I'm really happy that I got the email from CNCF community organizer, and they give me a chance to attend the CloudNet KubeCon 2020 for free. I'm really excited for that. I don't consider to be really happy that I can now participate in the KubeCon in the upcoming events 17, 18, 19, and 20. I think they are going for the fourth day. And Lee, what's our session to be held? On which days?
Oh yeah. Yeah, those are, we have a couple of links to those in the Meshery community meeting minutes. No, I'm sorry, the Layer 5 community meeting minutes. There's kind of two that myself and another contributor are giving. And then there's another one that Nitish Malhotra is giving. And he's been, pretty active in this community. So they are here. 1, 2, 3.
Lee, can you receive an email from CNCF community member? Because I think it's delivered to everyone who is organizing a community, and they have given a chance to attend the KubeCon for free, having some coupons code. Did you receive that email as well?
Yeah, I did.
They are now, they just started now this year, or they have done this for every KubeCon.
They weren't doing it. Simon is referring to the fact that, like, if you organize a CNCF meetup, a cloud native meetup, that you'll be given a discount to attend KubeCon. They didn't do this previously until I told them to do it a year and a half ago. The Cloud Native Ambassador program is not such a great program. And they've been working on it, and I've been giving them a ton of feedback. They've been implementing a lot of that feedback, but not all of it. But that was one of them, is like to.
So there is the member in front of me to thank him for that such kind of a brilliant suggestion. I don't think so that they are doing, but really happy that I think the KubeCon or Linux event, they are very expensive, and people have very criticized about that. They wanted to be as a free, but I'm really happy that even they did this for community members as well, like the organizers for us as well. So, Lee, Dana, thanks to you.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, it's helpful. I think maybe for all of the rest of you, just we talked about it on Friday, but and I think the deadline might have been Friday. They were giving out free hall passes, I think. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Anyone have anything else for today?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I shared the issue link in the chat. So I'll share my screen. This is the issue on which Shivam was working on, but due to some issue in his last PR, he closed it, and I asked him to open a new one. But I don't know. I haven't heard or seen a PR from him till now. So I was just, it was a fix in which he was providing a fix for this issue in which we would get a error or like a snack bar if the protocol is not present in the URL
Right.
after submitting the performance test. Means it will on the after the doing the submit one. So as we discussed on that call, on doing it in the client side, means on the doing it while changing it. So I just went through this component that they have a text field component and they provide a prop known as helper text, which checks the value of the error prop. It's a boolean value. So if it is a true, then it will show an error. If it's false, then it will be okay to move on. So I implemented that part on the code. So if we are not providing the URL protocol, then it's red. Integrating that, it will be an error. But if I provide the protocol, then it turns to. There's some left out of the code. I just did it now to demo it.
Nice.
This will go on. This will be removed, and also HTTP and HTTPS. So yeah, and I was thinking of implementing another part that as we are having this issue that the performance test fails if we don't provide the protocol. So we will be. I was thinking that we should disable the run test button until unless all the errors are gone. If all the errors are gone, then only we should enable the run test button. Otherwise, it would be a bad experience if the user doesn't know, submits the test and runs the test and sees a error popping up. Like, still, I don't have the protocol. It runs somehow because the URL is still okay to go ahead, but it shouldn't. So, like, if I give GitHub.com, it will show up a snack bar showing connection to the server field, something like that, which it shouldn't. So I was just thinking if this is good to go ahead. Then I will ask Shivam to do it. If he won't, then I will make a PR for it.
In general, this is an improvement over over what you're doing is bringing each of the form validations down to the individual input fields, which is a better experience than having a single form level validation that only happens on submit. Right, you're making it more granular. You're bringing validation on a per field basis immediately. Right, so
because getting a snack bar again and again for not getting a URL is kind of irritating.
Oh no, yeah, we can't. I mean, yeah, that getting a snack, getting a notification. Yeah. Yep. So to me, this is an improvement. This is that caveat with respect to. I'm surprised if you do that again. If you do HTTP : nothing, like so, the test runs.
Yeah, it happens because of the code that have changes that I. That's it. Because it checks for a boolean value, and it's set to true if this condition is met, that we have the index of 0. Means I have to do some modifications with the pattern testing, and then it will.
Okay, yeah, but no, that's just interesting that like Fortio didn't fail. Like, if you're actually getting back some statistics down below.
That even I don't know.
I guess the statistics are wonky, right? They're like they don't really. But I'm just surprised the routine didn't fail and come back quickly. It says 100% errors and stuff. So.
And another thing, for that earlier issue with the node metrics, the results part, I was able to see, means on using the load generator as WRK2, the Kubernetes metrics were coming and not using the Fortio. So you can try it with WRK2.
Any feedback for Nikhil on that, folks? seems like the right next step. And even that issue of not immediately failing an HTTP, an invalid URL. I think, Nikhil, if you put in an invalid URL, meaning you put in HTTP, if you put in, if you put an HTTP something, some invalid domain that's not reachable, I think the test will fail. Like the form will submit because it will pass form validation, but the load generator won't be able to reach the endpoint. And I thought it would return pretty quick.
So I guess there's some issue with the code because I just did it in a hurry to demo you.
Oh, sure. Well, like right now, if you type in, some invalid domain name.
Sure, we'll do it. Just a second.
Okay. Now, just for everyone else, to the extent that it's of interest, one of the things that that wasn't done in the past, it was redirection, meaning for example, if you were going to do a test on google.com, well, if you navigate in your web browser to google.com, you'll get redirected to www.google.com. And that redirection, it's the 302 HTTP code that gets returned. The load generator 4TO wasn't handling that previously, and we've changed the logic such that it does. If it receives a redirect, it will start sending load to that redirected URL. But yeah, so that's some odd behavior though, Nikhil, that you're not getting an immediate failure.
Even I'm noticing it for the first time. Instead of even after providing a wrong URL, if the protocol is not there, then it will show error, that we know. But if we provide a protocol and any false URL, then it actually runs the test. I think we need to add a validation for that part also, to check it for a valid domain.
Right. Yeah, it would actually be good if we validated from the UI.
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll do that.
All right, fair enough. We're like 15 minutes over, and so I want to make sure we don't have a marathon meeting. Nice, good. Mikhail, I'm hopeful that was somewhat helpful. For my part, I wrapped up final draft of a book on Monday night, and so for my part, I'm much more free to be more helpful than I have been. So as you go, raise questions as you go, because.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. That was very helpful. Just a practical assignment of not Jira, of course, GitHub issues. Is that something you do, or we can need access rights or something?
Yeah, let's get. Yep, I'll take that action item. We'll get that changed around. Fair enough. Okay. Anything? Oh no. Okay. Or there is nothing else.
No.
We'll see everyone on Friday, and Mikhail, I'll follow up real briefly. So.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. Good to see everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.